I love to introduce our speaker for this evening. We have the pleasure of bringing to you a dynamic speaker by the name of Talibah Bayles. Miss Bayles is the founder of TMB Tax and Financial Services Benefit Corp. She blends local commitment with national influence, championing equitable access to entrepreneurs. She is a 2021 Small Business Administration Emerging Leaders class graduate. She integrates grassroots enthusiasm with extensive federal expertise from over 15 years in Washington, D.C. Ms. Baylor's tenure includes roles on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Justice, shaping her advocacy for fair financial solutions. Notably, her 2020 U.S. Senate testimony underscores the importance of minority owned businesses during COVID 19, paving the way for initiatives like her Get Bankable CEO coaching program. Recently appointed to the Small Business Majority Board of Directors, Talibah also instructs at Miles College Women's Business Center and coaches for SBA Thrive Emerging Leadership Program while serving in various roles, highlighting her commitment to fostering thriving economies. Please join me in a virtual Panther round of applause as we welcome Miss Bales.
I
All right.
started moving those lips before hitting unmute. I apologize. Thank you all so much. Wow, this is really awesome. I'm so appreciative to be able to have your time this evening. And I actually see one, maybe two of my Mouse College Women Business Center cohort participants on the call. Thank you for joining. I really love getting in front of business owners. It is a wonderful time to start a business, to be a business owner. If you're a startup, wonderful. If you've been in business for a couple of years, wonderful. If you're in the middle of a pivot, wonderful. I have put some good thought into what I want to cover tonight. And I'll be my own plug and say that I'm going to set a table for my next session, which will be on the 23rd, because financial planning and budgeting is going to be the bulk of what we'll cover tonight. However, that sets the table for tax planning and compliance. And so I'll try to stay on topic, but they are totally interwoven here. So I am going to start sharing my screen. All right. So I am very interactive. I need to know what you are thinking, what is coming across your mind when I contact you on certain things by asking you questions. So the only thing I ask for you, and really to ensure that you are going to get the best amount of, or as we say, ROI, return on investment for your time this evening, is I want you to put stuff in the chat. We are going to get really hands-on with an actual budget template. I'm going to make you love budgeting by the time this is done, okay? But in order for you to ensure that you are going to get the best out of what I've prepared for you, I really need to know what things are coming across your mind. So the first exercise to see if you are ready to engage with me and you're ready to dive into this very exciting subject of financial planning and budgeting is I want you to tell me why you're here today. And I want you to be specific. I want you to tell me, I just started my business. I have no clue on where to start. Or I tried to do a budget and then I stopped it. Or I don't know what I don't know. Whatever is applicable to you, I want you to begin sharing with me in the chat why you're here today so that I can ensure that as I go over the material, that your specific reason for being on this call today is going to be answered. All right. Again, I really believe in valuing time because we all have probably a million other things that we could be doing, but you hopped on a call about financial planning and budgeting on a Tuesday evening. So I want to make sure that you leave feeling like, yes, this is what I needed. All right. So I'm going to pull up the chat. All right. So hi, Adrian. So two of my Miles College Women Business Center cohorts. So I don't know what I don't know. Okay. I see a couple of people like that. Recent pivot. Wonderful. Yes. I'm just starting my business and I want to make sure I'm starting correctly. Wonderful. I'm hoping to learn more about budgeting for small businesses, always looking to improve. Wonderful. Yes. Okay. All right. So why am I here? Now I had a whole chunk of bio that Erica just read. So, you know what? Thank you, Erica. I realized, as my teenager says, nothing is more cringy than hearing your own bio being read. But I also believe in, as I talked this earlier today at Mouse College here in Birmingham, in adding the value and believing in the value that I'm going to be bringing to you tonight. And so in addition to what Erica shared as it relates to my bio, again, I am extremely passionate about making this thing called numbers, taxes, accounting, qualifying for funding, making it make sense. And I've put a lot of time, been doing this whole thing for over 15 years. Staff combined, we're over 100 years. It's not much we haven't seen when it comes to people breaking it and fixing it and all the in between. But I really love what I do. And I know that I'm going to add value to our discussion tonight. And so that is why I'm here. Because sometimes I like to get from behind the computer, from out of QuickBooks, and get in front of some faces to interact with me. Okay. In addition to what I've just said, I also like to call myself wearing multiple crowns, as they say, that serial entrepreneur, which sounds crazy, right? But to be an entrepreneur, you got to be kind of out there because it requires a lot from us. But in addition to being the founder of TMB Tax and Financial Services, I also have a sister organization called Access Granted, which is a 501c3. And that is where I partner with organizations like GSU and other organizations across the US to do this type of interactive learning and providing financial tools to business owners to make sure that that whole equitable playing field that we talked about exists. And my newest baby, which I definitely will be in contact with you all about, is Bankably. We have built a web platform that merges all of my loves, which is taxes and accounting, educating, and helping business owners qualify for funding. So we have a lender match tool, and that is also what I honorably wear a new crown for. And so again, you can't be in a better place when it comes to not only GSU and all our other partners, but myself in wanting to pour into you tonight. And so I hope you guys are ready. So what are we going to do here today? All right. That's now what we're going to dive into. And what I want to make sure that we distinguish, because again, I believe in having that emotional connect to everything that we're talking about with money, because I know that money is emotional. And I know that taxes is emotional. And I know that making it make sense in your business is emotional. So let's talk about what budgeting and financial planning is and what it is not. And if in us discussing what is on this slide again happens to hit you when it comes to that emotional thing, maybe it's, I'm afraid to look at my numbers because they're not where I want them to be. Anything in between, I promise that with interaction and with the budget template that I hope to spend more time on with you tonight, that I'm going to make you love budgeting because you're going to see how important it is to unlocking so many gems in the operations of your business. So what is budgeting? Budgeting gives you what? Freedom to operate your business with confidence, believe it or not. So if you're thinking, oh, like, oh my God, like, where am I going to get these numbers from? If you're thinking, I just started up, I'm not bringing in any revenue, why do I need to budget? Whatever you're thinking, I promise you, and I hope to demonstrate to you tonight that it truly gives you that confidence. It erases the gray. It gives you some certainty because you're looking at your numbers to run your business and to make some major decisions. What else does it do? And this may be when we come to that emotional sense, this may be where you're thinking anxiety, where you're thinking, I'm about to put this off because I might owe taxes, or I might, I might not have renewed my business license, or whatever the case may be. So I'm like, I don't want to look at it. But it also allows you to identify problems. So if you've already kind of skipped your eyeballs over to what it is not, then you can see why this thing that I'm going to teach you tonight, the financial planning and the budgeting, is absolutely not a set it and forget it. I need for you to have a frequent relationship with this living document that you're going to have when it comes to your business's numbers, budgeting, and financial planning. Because if you wait till tax time, it's over with, right? Or let's say if something's wrong, if you're paying a vendor too much, if you're insert whatever your problem may be that we actually identify, and you don't look at it until December or October, that's an opportunity lost. So the budgeting and the financial planning is something that we want to do. We want to create a living document that we visit frequently. Then what is it going to do? And I hope that we have some examples of this tonight when we get into that budget template and I start asking you for numbers. But it actually empowers you to, start setting some goals and activating beast mode on your numbers. And as we say, key performance indicators. Start setting some, I want to be able to do this at this time and this many clients, or sell this many t-shirts. But it is going to empower you in that way to actually be able to address any challenges that you also may be coming to the call experiencing. And that is having the clarity in your numbers. And so, as I said before, budgets, not set it and forget it. No numbers, right? Taxes is not a one-time tax season thing. I want you to automatically have this relationship with your numbers on a frequent basis. Okay. So that's a part of why we are here. So obviously this white font, definitely, I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm going to make sure that I cover that part as well, even if you can't see it. And I'll fix it when I give Risha the PDF slides, so that you can have these. Okay. Now, here's where I'm trying to build up the anticipation of why I know budgeting and financial planning to be just really the foundation of so many gems that you get from the practice of doing this. And that's this word called forecasting. Okay. Who's heard of forecasting before? Who has heard of or been asked for a pro forma financial statement? If you have, just put it in the chat and I'll visit that momentarily. But what you'll also be able to do is forecast, project, use actual numbers to then look towards the future when it comes to how your business may operate. And can you imagine how insightful that is when it comes to making decisions? And not even so much as a long-term strategy in the sense of a year out. What about those Black Friday sales? What about, or whatever theme that you may already be doing in your business or thinking about doing in your business where you want to have some type of promo, right? This is going to allow you to go into that a little more educated and making sure that you're not just doing a Black Friday sale or a sale because it's a holiday, but that you still are very much going to be profitable in doing that sale, because a lot of times it's not always great to do that. And that's what forecasting will allow you to do. To distinguish forecasting from budgeting, and that's where this gold highlight is once you forecast, it kind of gives you that plan, and the budget then is how you're going to carry out the forecasting, the projection for year 2 or 6 months out. Budgeting is the instrument in which you're able to carry out forecasting. And I thought this was a really good example. So I wanted to make sure I included it here. So the forecast may be for you that I'm going to, based upon all of my numbers, I'm going to increase my revenue by $25,000 this year. Okay. However, for the budget part of it, and to help you distinguish that and why you want to budget, is now you're going to create a budget to allocate that $25,000 that you forecasted you're going to make. Okay. And I hope that makes sense. All right. Now let's go in a little bit deeper. All right. So now, how do we go about budgeting? Remember, I want this to be so interactive for you, because I realize whether it's Google University, YouTube University, IG influencer, or a mere Google search, like, you can get a lot of words. So I am not here to give you just a lot of words and fluff. I really want you to be able to apply this stuff to where if I contacted you by the next event, the 23rd, you're going to have a budget. And that's how intentional we want to be. So how exactly do you go about budgeting? Where do you start? I'm going to go in the chat. That's a real question. If you've tried budgeting, okay, where are you getting your information? I kind of give you the answer on the screen, but again, where are you getting? Okay, so Aaron said, I wing it. Okay. Who else? Give me some more examples on where. Okay. So currently use Excel and Wave software. Good, Miles. Okay. Okay. Who else? So as I said, I do give you the answers. And it's important that I identify this, because when it comes to budgeting and financial planning, I have to let you know that the $1 million secret is you actually have your answer somewhere. So is your answer in a pile of paper on your desk? Is your answer in the shoebox of receipts? Is your answer like Miles, where it's in Excel or it's in Wave? Is your answer, I see where Steve has said, is in QuickBooks Self-Employed? Is your answer, you're writing it down? You're writing down this thing called running a business and how much you're spending and how much you're making. Whatever is applicable to you, that is your answer. That's how you're going to start. That's where we're going to start with budgeting. Okay. It is not a one size fits all, because what I spend in a month, you may not spend in a month. What Miles may spend in a month, Aaron's not going to spend in a month. And conversely, when it comes to revenue. So that's why the challenge is going to be for you to locate your stuff. Now, remember, I talk about engaging in that emotional, like, sort of elephant in the room, because we have to do that in order for these types of disciplines to be developed. If you know that your stuff is in all of the places that we identified, it could be in multiple buckets. Now I want to talk about the incentive again and demonstrate to you the incentive of getting it all together. Okay. Whether it's, and it could be step by step, depending on how much stuff you have. But if it's in a pile of paperwork, go ahead and bring it somewhere where you're going to look at it every day. If it's in QuickBooks, let's log in. But now let's start gathering this stuff because that has your answer. The incentive is your stuff has the answer. Okay. Now, let me get the chat out of that way. So I'm envisioning you guys going and finding your stuff. And if you want to go ahead and find your stuff while I'm going over how the categories, please do. Okay. So now that I've told you that the answer to how you're going to go about budgeting and financial planning is in your stuff, wherever your stuff is, your receipts are, your handwritten logs are. Now I want to help you categorize and understand what this stuff is. Because obviously when it comes to numbers, they're more easily digestible when you know the categories, really kind of when you know what to look for. If I'm envisioning someone with a bunch of receipts, I'm going to help you put those in the right piles. All right. So let's talk about essential startup costs. Okay. So I know that we have some folks who are getting ready to start the business, some folks who are in the business, so forth and so on. But here's just a very general list of what startup costs may include. All right. So we know business registration fees, right? And business registration fees, this is going to go a little bit on my teaser for later on tonight, but most importantly for tax planning, business registration fees means that I've already assumed that you've registered as an LLC and you are not operating as a sole proprietor. I always try to use some of my bullet points to give you a little bit more gems. So I could not say that. So business registration fees, because we know you're going to be registering as an LLC if you have not, or if you have, at the bare minimum, because sole proprietor, we'll dive a little bit more into it. It's not going to be the best way that we want to be a business owner, both legally, financially, and from the tax standpoint. Computers and equipment, we know we need these. We have to have at bare minimum your phone. These are things that that you're going to have to spend money on if you do not have it. If you are a business that has tangible products, t-shirts, if it's books, whatever your tangible product is, you're going to need inventory. So those are going to be some acceptable startup costs that I'm sure if you've already spent. And then patents. Patents is not as common, but I left it here because in these days, you definitely want to go about protecting these grand ideas that you are developing and executing in your business. And so receipt piles, handwritten logs, wherever it is, even QuickBooks, right? How we're going to be categorizing our expenses. These are good examples of startup costs. I also want to sprinkle in a little bit of a tax tip when it comes to startup costs that most business owners aren't aware of. So it is actually written in IRS guidelines on irs.gov. The IRS fully knows that in your startup years, and they even give you the first 5 years, that you may actually spend more than you bring in. Ooh, that is like such a breakthrough. Like we know that, right? I mean, if you are starting up, not all, but most business owners, if you're starting up, there's a very high chance that you're spending more than you brought in. Right. And so the IRS actually has this assumption that so your first maybe 5-year tax returns are negative because that is the case. And we talk about a lot more that negative tax return, but I wanted to sprinkle in and kind of relieve some anxiety or even get some wheels a spinning on how you may have already filed your taxes. Like when it comes to startup costs as a category that we want to have in our budget and financial planning template. Okay. Now there's this thing called fixed expenses. Fixed expenses, this is just, again, general category, really to kind of get your wheels spinning on some things that you may be spending money on or already have spent money on. So when it comes to fixed expenses, what do you think of when you see that word fixed? Okay. So fixed means it's a static number. Okay. When it comes to particularly when it comes to rent and mortgage, if your rent is $875 for your office, it's $875, right? Perhaps when you renew your lease, it may change, but it is fixed at one set dollar amount per month. The same thing for salaries. Unless you bring on a new person, a salary, you've told someone we are going to pay you $30,000 for the year. So unless there's commissions or things of that nature, which is not fixed, then salaries usually is going to be the same cost. Website hosting is a good example. And there are other subscriptions, Zoom, costs that are the same amount per month. That's how I want you to understand a fixed expense. Okay. Again, pop in any questions if you have them. Now, variable expenses. Okay. So it is the opposite of fixed in the sense that depending upon your level of consumption, like your business's needs, it can vary. I mean, it literally is as it reads. And so advertising, I think, is a good example of such, because we know if you're using Facebook ads or IG or Google, whichever ad platform that you are spending money on, that's fluctuating, because especially if you're looking at the performance of those posts or ads, like if it's working, you may decrease it or increase it, those types of things. Legal fees, hopefully nothing happens at all, but if it's contingent upon needing a lawyer for certain activities, that could change depending on what that legal expense may actually be for. Travel, I think everybody can understand, like there's not a set dollar amount, I mean, even renting a car, can fluctuate. It is definitely variable. Business income taxes, which I hope we have enough time for tonight. But if we do not, again, I'm really trying to make sure I see y'all on the 23rd, because I will make sure that we dive into business income taxes and just everything, business income taxes for that. But those are examples of variable expenses. And again, I'm going over these categories because these are all part of what your budget and your financial planning template has to include. You have to know the difference between fixed and you have to know the difference between variable. Okay. Recurring expenses. This is really kind of the same as variable, especially if you have, I would say a good example, particularly, let me use a real life example. So Active Campaign, your CRM, HubSpot, whoever you use for your CRM, as your email list grows, we know that a lot of those CRMs will charge more for however many folks you have to email. So whereas you may have started using Active Campaign at $185 for 1,000 people, you add another 1,000 on there, it's another, it is another fee. So that's an example of how a software subscription is recurring because it's happening every month, but it's also variable because it, again, depends on that consumption. You may have a constantly repeating maintenance contract. If you have an office and you're paying, a cleaner, for example, That's an example of maintenance. And then if you're using someone in your business for professional services, consulting services, and you have signed an engagement with them, a contract, that's a recurring expense. Again, that may or may not fluctuate depending upon what your initial contract is. Okay. So there are some examples. I'm going to now put this template into the chats. And then for those who are watching the recording, we'll make sure that you also get this link so that you can build out your budget using this link as well. Okay, y'all. So I put it in the chat. So I'm going to give y'all a chance to pull it up. And I know Zoom gets kind of clunky when it comes to being able to not only like watch the Zoom presentation, and then, work into a document. So you can just look at my screen if you don't have two screens or don't feel like toggling back and forth to Zoom, that's fine. But I do want you to plug some numbers in here. Okay. And I'm going to drive as well. Now, this is basic. This is a basic template that you're going to be putting your numbers in. But what we're going to be demonstrating is the foundation of such, the practice of such, the discipline of adding information in here is going to unlock some major operational decisions for you. So hold on. I'm going to move the Zoom stuff out of the way so we can start putting some things in here. A heads up, if you're pulling this up, whether you're pulling this up now or actually after our call. So we're only putting in information in the non-shaded part. So that's going to be over here. Okay. And then we've set this up. This part that I'm making a big circle out of, this is auto-populating because it's connected to what we'll add over here. So you're not going to be putting information in this section over here. And that we made sure we put only the non-shaded fields. Okay. But I wanted to show you the difference in the shaded fields. So let's go. Let's lock into where you said your stuff was. Okay. Whether you said your stuff was handwritten log, maybe you actually went and got that box of receipts while I was going over the categories, whatever it may be. I want you to, we're going to just fill this out for a little bit together so that, again, I can unlock some questions and so that we can develop some muscle memory about what you're going to be doing with this template when the call is over. So you can see here that I started plugging in some numbers already, as I wanted to demonstrate how it automatically populates in that first section that we were looking in. But the reason why I really like this budget template, it serves so many different, I'm going to show you how it serves so many different uses. But let's talk about this first column. Okay. Due dates, that date due. Why is that important? Okay. In the crazy world of being a business owner where you're wearing multiple hats, you may lose track of things. And while this, whatever works for you, whether it be because that, let's say a utility bill sends you an email to let you know your bill is ready, like you're going to get that, right? But if we're connecting and putting in due dates into a document that you're looking at frequently, I promise you it makes it make sense, because I'm going to show you where by putting in that date due, particularly for your expenses, we're going to understand this thing called cash flow, right? So if I know that, let's say all of these administrative categories are actually due on the 1st. All right. So I'm going to change this to the 1st. This is why I want you to to put in, and you can actually put in the date, but for, again, good measure, I put in the first. Okay. If you've put that in, so far, we know that our administrative costs, they're all due on the first, and they're $700. Now, when we understand cash flow and having control over your budget, on the opposite side, when we think of revenue, what is going to be your incentive about this $700? The answer is, if I know I have $700 due, I'm going to make sure that any invoice that I'm sending out, particularly if you have like our service-based businesses who have a monthly bill for clients, or even if you don't, but you want to make sure that you have sent out your invoices in time for you to be able to pay your bills. That's like such a basic way of saying cash flow and a cash flow statement. And when it comes to what outside external folks want to know about your business, whether that be folks that you are asking for a loan for, or investors, they're going to want to know how that cash flow is looking. When's the revenue coming in? When are the expenses coming out? Is it negative at any point in time during the month? Is it negative at the end of the month? How many times has it been negative? So that's why we want to have management over our cash flow. So I went off the little podium a little bit to explain that date due, but I am going to be doing that to show you again, and to make this like fun and incentivize why you're going to spend some time in developing this budget. And I have already shown you where you're going to have some cash flow management by completing the date due for your expenses. So that column is very important. Now, what I like to do in advising my business owners who don't know where to start when it comes to budgeting, and this is why it doesn't matter if you have 1 comma, no commas, or 3 commas, or 4 or 5 commas in your bank account. This applies to everyone if you have nowhere to start. So let's start backwards. We're going to start backwards. So once again, we're going back to that box of receipts, or back to QuickBooks, back to handwritten logs, back to wherever your stuff is. We got to go back to that. And now I want you, momentarily don't look at the budget column. I want you to put in actual. So where you have already spent money, I want you to put that number in first. Okay. If we're just doing a budget, or if, we've done a couple of budgets and it's just not working, start with actual first. And that is why you can see where I'm saying you got to know your stuff. My actual is not the same as your actual. Okay. So that's the incentive to get your stuff out and put that actual in there. Now, we're going to go, like I said, I want you to go through this exercise of actual where it's applicable. Okay. And just add it up. Now, after you've done that, so again, and why I put the $200. So now we want to examine the relationship of our revenue. Okay. And if I know, going back to the $700, if I know that so far my out-of-pocket expenses for my business come up to $700, I also know that $700 is due on the first. So I have a little understanding on cash flow management. Now I want to look at my revenue. And so I would say maybe like it, because budgeting also requires courage versus conservatism, if that makes any sense. You want to make it reflective of your goals, but still be logical, right? So if and here's an example. I know I have $700. If I wanted to just say, and my budget for licenses is $200. Like if you want to base it on your actual, because that's just where, you don't want to try to factor in the fact that you may open a second location, or heck, even, you might want to put in here the cost of if you don't pay it on time, right? There are a lot of different things in going to setting a number higher than that. But if you don't have any clue, again, no revenue coming in, but you want to go through this budget and have an idea of what you need to make, then you can just make this be $200, right? But again, and licenses is probably not the best example. Let's go down here let's go to some ones that we know may change. Let's go to software, because we know that changed. So an example of software, let's say actual is $8.99. So it's July, and I've already spent $899 for software. Now, how would you say I would set that budget? Again, if you go to fixed costs, you know the answer to that. If you go to recurring costs, if you go to variable costs, that's how we went over all the categories to help you understand how you need to develop the budget. So in this case, I can say, I'm not going to add on any more software, right? I'm going to stay with whatever software subscriptions have brought me to this $8.99 so far in this year. So if I want to be conservative and say I'm not going to do anything more, then the way that I would do that budget is I would just make sure that I've spread that out over 12 months. So we're just going to say that by December, because I know that I'm not adding any other software on there, I know what my monthly software costs are, and they're all going to add up to this $1,600, right? I'm not going to add anything else. So my budget then becomes the total of the actual. And that's what I mean by if there's no growth there, if you have no intention of expanding any of these costs, then your answer to your budget would be the cost of the software, at least as a base practice, right? But I would say that you do want to build in some padding for even your costs changing. You can get an email tomorrow that says, hey, we hope you're really liking our product, but we're going to be charging $5 more, starting November. Then that's when you have to come back in, and that $1,600 is going to show you as over, because again, you didn't factor in the changing price of that cost. So most folks will put in some padding when it comes to developing these budgets. And what I like about the third column, the over and under column, this is very, very valuable, because what it's going to do is remember we talked about identifying problems along the way. So in this particular case, this is actually identifying a benefit. It's like, oh, I'm super under budget so far, right? As of July, super under budget. So I have some extra money to spend. So that's how I want you to look at the over under column. If it is not negative, as in this case, meaning there's a credit there, meaning you're under budget, and it's over. So let's say that I actually had set a budget for software to be $600. Now we see where the spreadsheet has said, oh, you're over by $200, but basically you might as well say $300. You're over by $300. Okay. Now, again, this is why I call this a living document, because we don't want to be over that much in software. Particularly if you use marketing, for an example, if you have a fluctuating marketing budget because you've identified something that works, so you want to put more money on that ad, if you're filling all of this in and you have some negatives, like if I put this back at 1,600, I can say here, oh, well, you know what? This ad is really performing well. I had put in a budget of $1,600 for marketing. I still have $700. Let me put more money on marketing. So that's a way that you can use the over under column. Another reason that the over under column is very helpful is it also can help you with projections. And remember, we talk and forecasting, because if I were to revisit you a year from now and I would say, hey, so, where are we in relates to your budget for year two? How do we factor in software costs for year two? Right. And the pro forma, the forecasting that we talked about, you're simply taking your actual numbers and you're factoring things like changing costs, inflation. You could come up with a certain percentage of, which is a popular method of forecasting, to say, I'm going to increase this by 2% every year. So now you've built out your budget and your forecasting then in that category. So I hope that I'm not going too fast, because I do get very excited about this. But I hope that so far I've demonstrated sort of the basic gems and takeaways that you will get in having this exercise with your actual numbers and this spreadsheet. Particularly, I want to also hear from my folks who do actually have QuickBooks or Wave, a cloud accounting software. How are you all using the cloud accounting software to develop your budget? If you are, and if you are not, are you getting some ideas as to how you can use cloud-based and cloud accounting software to develop a budget, if it does not have that feature in there? Because QuickBooks Self-Employed, okay, Erin's getting some ideas. QuickBooks Self-Employed, I don't think it has a budgeting feature. I want to say that really only like the Plus and Advanced online monthly subscriptions have the budgeting feature built in. Which is why, having it as a spreadsheet is completely fine. I mean, it is a definitely viable workaround to making sure that you actually have a living document. Let me give you another reason why this practice in this particular spreadsheet can yield a benefit for you. So remember how I talked about cash flow management, right? Understanding when bills are due versus when your revenue comes in. So that's cash flow management. That's trying to ensure that your cash flow statement then shows that you not only have the ability to pay your bills, but that you are managing how your revenue and your expenses have that relationship one another to cover each other. Now, I'll also let you in on another secret and another benefit for filling this out, particularly the actual column. And if you don't have, QuickBooks or Wave, if you go through the exercise of this actual column here, what financial statement do you think you've actually built out for your business by going through this exercise? What financial statement can you possibly have as a result of using this template? Yes. Yes, Aaron. All right. Yes, you absolutely will have your P&L, your profit and loss, your income statement. Okay. So, and I get this all the time, henceforth why I created Bankably. But I also know that when it comes to having our stuff in order, our financial documents is something that a lot of small business owners struggle with. I mean, that just comes with the territory. You got into business for said purpose. You didn't get into business to have a profit and loss statement, right? I understand that, which is why, again, having this tool is a part of why we're here tonight. Because we all know that when it comes to a P&L, a profit and loss statement, an income statement, that is definitely a very important document to have in your business. It is important because we know that, again, if you're applying for a loan, it's going to be asked for, and certainly attracting any investors is going to be asked for. But the extra value, as I hope you've linked with this spreadsheet, is it's going to let you have those operational decisions. Henceforth, your P&L can absolutely be a resource for you creating a budget. So what am I saying? Those folks who have QuickBooks, simply export your P&L out into Excel. Okay. Export your, and that's assuming that your information is correct. When would you use the last table? This one here, the projected average monthly cost, out to Excel. And now you have this. I would just use when you don't have. So basically, when you're going to use your actual, a one-off, to establish your budget for next year. Class registrations, based on how like if you had paid the table, $10 when it comes to that tonight's class, then it gives you a little bit more flexibility to plug in what your expense is. So you would type that in, and then you would do actual. And the thing that I like about having the free form capability there is that, you know, it could be like, hey, you know what? I like devoting a budget to continuing education. You know, or it could just truly be a one-off, and you may not find any value in creating a budget. But you know, I think I like, so there's this thing called miscellaneous business expenses, right? If you have a whole list of things down here that didn't fit into any category and they truly were one-offs, on a tax return, you know, some people will put all of those costs together into miscellaneous costs. You know, and so, you know, you may find value in at least going through the exercise to see if there's something that you need to pull out to have a budget for. Or just simply, you know, that here's this itemized list of what I put into miscellaneous costs for my P&L or for my taxes. Good question. But particularly for startups, when you're trying to navigate where all of these costs are, I truly recommend itemizing it as I've done first. But I want you to itemize typically those miscellaneous costs, because there could be some opportunities to create a budget or flat outright eliminate something that, you know, that is kind of like an outlier. Yes. Just like if I were talking about QuickBooks and like when should you go in there and make sure you've classified all your transactions so that your P&L and all of that stuff is correct, my answer is always monthly. Why? Such a good question, Micah. Because how often does the bank publish your statements, your business account statements? Monthly. So again, I'm all for developing muscle memory and discipline and like making it make sense and logical so you actually do it. So usually your financial institution, whoever you bank with, will send you that email reminder, right? To say your business checking account bank statement is ready. So I like to tell my business owners, now's the time. You got that reminder. Let's get that statement. It's time for bank recs. So the same thing, which means, you know, making sure you've done everything in QuickBooks. The same thing is going to be for your budget, right? Because we want to, that over and under column, we want to keep our eyeballs on that over and under column. So if we're doing that on a monthly basis, then we're going in and we're catching any over and under problems. We're catching any cash flow management problems. And as I said, I really hope that it wasn't missed, particularly for my business owners that have the recurring billing that you're sending to your clients. I remember, you know, back in time where I was really, doing this for my business by myself in in a spreadsheet, not this one, but a similar one. And, again, by myself on the island at that time. And then it like hit me. I was like, wait a minute. Now, if all of my bills are due on the 1st, why the heck am I only invoicing on the 15th? Right? And so that was a light bulb for me, because you have to factor in not only the fact that you've emailed or however you're sending your invoices out to your clients saying that they're due on the 15th, but you got to factor in when they pay them, right? So that's why it's so valuable for a monthly look, at your numbers, particularly so that it aligns with how you're billing. And conversely, if you're in let's say a pop-up shop type model, where you're very much event based, again, you need to look at your date due column, because if that's going to, when I say unlock beast mode, you're going to go into signing up for these events with the fact that, okay, it makes no sense for me to do this event at this time. Those are the types of things that, again, when you're plugging these numbers in and then you're having a conversation about them with the professional, to make you unlock things like that, and those light bulbs go off, I can't say it enough. I believe that you will love coming to this spreadsheet monthly, because that it's going to reveal something in how you operate your business. Same thing with the $1 million question. Is like, man, am I charging the right amount? Okay. So if you've ever asked yourself that question, am I charging the right amount? Look at your actual column, right? If I know, going back down, let's plug in a little bit of something else. So if I know that right now, how far am I? Oh, I could have gone all the way up here. Ugh. If I'm at, I hope I'm not making y'all dizzy. If I'm at $1,599 actual so far with what I've plugged in over there, and I'm having a moment and I am like, man, I'm doing all this work and it just doesn't reflect in my bank account. Like, what's happening? Like, am I charging enough? Should I increase my prices? Should I, like, all of those questions that I know that we've all asked ourselves. As I said at the top of this call, should I do a sale? All of those questions. How awesome and how much of a beast mode could you be in if it's based upon your actual numbers? So if I know that I've spent $1,599, I know that I better be charging something, anything that's over what I've paid out. This is not a hobby. I don't want to break even. I want to be profitable. So if I know, again, said differently, over here to my administrative costs, remember that we talked about, and the $700 being due on the 1st. So if I know that at the bare minimum, I got to have $700 the 1st of every month, and this is where you, the CEO, make the decision. You can say, I want a 15% profit margin. I want a 50% profit, whatever profit margin you want. That's going to tell you, your actuals is going to tell you how much you need to be charging. So I'm at least charging $1,500. So what that does then, let's take it even deeper. I know I'm kind of like spitballing this stuff at you, but I'm determined to get some questions out of y'all. And I want you to actually fill this out, and hopefully start doing a little something before the 23rd so that we can, so I can hear from you onto what you all discovered in doing this process. Let me give you another gem to factor into um, what you should be charging and what your budget should be. So raise your hand if you use your own money for your business. Raise your hand if you use your own, like you're using your own money, whether that be because you have a W-2 job, whatever the case may be. Like every business owner at some point is using their own money to fund their business, right? Okay. So if you're doing that, plus you actually have your own personal expenses. So what we're talking about, like what I'm asking you to do when it comes to filling out this spreadsheet, and let me make that clear, even though it's right here, I'm asking you to put in your information for your business. But where does that come into play? Like, where does my personal come in at? How do I use my household costs into my business's budget? Here's where we start unlocking beast mode into, and I want my business to be able to cover my personal expenses as well. Here's what we talk about, right, Erin and Adrian, where one of our cohort participants, she quit her W-2 job. Here's what we talk about saying, and now I am ready to do X because I am bringing in, and I know what that number is for me to not only have developed this budget for my business, but now I want my business to be able to pay for my personal experience, my personal expenses. Let's go back to the $700. I'm seeing more coming in. Oh yeah, I'm seeing more chats coming in. Y'all know I love that engagement. Let's go back to my $700. I know that I have $700 due at the first of the month for my business. Okay. Now, I also know I have $1,500 due for my household expenses. So in totality, I have $2,200. Business and my own personal expenses. Okay. And I'm not saying, you can use this for your personal, a whole nother spreadsheet. I like to have stuff separate. Okay. Don't start putting the household stuff in there. We're just trying to level up this whole spreadsheet here. So I've said business and personal, I am at $2,200 that is due on the first. That factors into your pricing. You get an opportunity for a contract or for additional clients. You need to also know how much it costs for you as well as for your business, because now, right now, when I ask you, hey, how much profit you want to have, your answer is, well, I know I need to at least be bringing in $2,200, because remember that $2,200 reflects what I know I have due between my business and my personal. So now I'm basing my pricing on both. These are all exercises and decisions that you can only make. You can only make by knowing your actual numbers. It's like stabbing in the dark doesn't get you to the precision of, this is how much it costs me to be a business owner, and this is how much it costs me in my personal home. So then, if I know that it costs $2,200 at the first of the month for me to live, Now, again, beast mode time, because now I'm about to make sure that I'm at least making that amount. But now I want to just keep making more and keep making more and keep making more. And that's when you start considering payroll, bringing on staff, so forth and so on. But I hope that in the exercise of what we've just simply touched on tonight, that you're getting some wheels spinning right now where you are in your startup. Or if you've been in business for a while, whenever. This exercise, this thing called financial planning, the most effort is going to be getting all your stuff in one place. If it's in the box and the desk and the things of that nature. It's not in cloud-based accounting. But after you get that heavy lift, if it's such, and now you're putting all those things onto this one document. I've told you how you're going to have cash flow management. I've told you how you now have a P&L, a profit and loss, and income statement because you've completed the actual. I've told you how you can allocate money to marketing or to other costs based upon your over under column. Or if it's over, maybe you're spending too much with Office Depot and you need to go to Staples. I don't know, but you can switch vendors when you're over budget. But I've also told you how you can really activate beast mode in your revenue, how aggressively you try to acquire clients and, identify additional revenue streams, things of that nature. And it's all interrelated. That's going to be your over and under. Let the over and under column populate. So after you enter in your actuals and then as it relates to your budget, that's going to give you an idea of what, if you're profitable or if you're at a loss. Here is where we can put in our revenue, and I'm going to tweak it so it says startup funding and investors and loans. For the purpose of what I want you guys to do. And that's where your actual and such is going to be. Okay. Here's an example of what I want y'all to do, Aaron included. So I'm changing this to revenue, right? And I want you to capture your revenue streams, the ways in which you earn your revenue. An example for you, you may have professional headshots. That may be something that you offer. Okay. Let's say that, if you offer professional headshots, so far you've made $500 on that. Same thing with the expenses. You're going to put the actual here. You may also have events, like event photography. I want y'all to go through the exercise of breaking out your revenue streams. Okay. I am going somewhere with this, Aaron and Adrian probably know where, because now you're tracking and you're thinking your revenue streams. You want to know the performance of that. So then if you have event photography as a separate revenue stream within your business, so far you've made $4,000 on that. You're adding that in there. Say goal here. We'll change this to goal. So then Aaron's goal for this year could be 10,000. She's going to put in 10,000 there. So she has that here. Okay. And I'll make sure that I update this, make sure that it's reflective of what we're doing. But I like this direction because I do want you to, on the revenue side, and I'll have to break it out on revenue as a goal. And I think I will leave. I think it's because I don't want to completely break my formulas or my assistance formulas in here. I'm going to leave loans and additional funding, but if it's not applicable, it's not applicable. All right. But I do want to leave that because really that helps you build a balance sheet as well, which I have not talked about.
I love the investor as well, because some of person on the call may want. So I would hope if you could
Yeah.
add that.
Mm-hmm. So we'll leave it here. And like, so you'll just know that downward revenue, we said it was a goal. I mean, up here, when it comes to the at least the funding side of things, it is a goal. That's the way we'll frame it versus a budget for revenue, if that makes any sense. Good question, Micah. But I definitely want to make sure that you all see the value in this rebuild, in the sense of tracking the individual ways in which your is categorizing your income, so that you can track that. Because without going so much off, and I know that we only have a little bit more time, but I focused heavily on expenses just because like that's what I know you can get your hands on in the sense of being a startup, and and maybe in the place where you're spending more than you're bringing in. But I think it's a great way to end tonight by also seeing the value in planning for the revenue as well, like setting those goals as well, and actually plugging in the numbers. Like we talked about activating beast mode based upon the cost, but then let's put it into your template as well. Let's have it put in, because now that we've had that full discussion over here, where we were talking about, again, what we know the actual cost for the business to be, as well as the personal, then that's where you can make sure that your revenue streams over here equal, when it comes to goals, equals those two things together. And then you're tracking it as actual. I like it. So I think we've done a lot in the budget template, probably even more than than what I planned. But I really wanted to make sure that we spent a lot more of our time tonight in this template, so that you can see live time the value of this tool, because it truly is valuable. And I hope that it fills in some blanks for you in your actual business, on how you're going to go about that budgeting, the actual the over under column, the cash flow management piece. We went over a lot. I know that we did. So I know that you may have questions, and we're definitely going to leave enough time for that. But I suspect that when you start filling in these things into your template, you're going to have more questions. So, I would love for that to happen before the 23rd, but we'll make sure that that I engage with you on being able to follow up on you actually going through this exercise for yourself. But now that I have properly set the foundation on the importance of budgeting and planning, could you have guessed that the process of you budgeting and planning very much so is directly linked to how I recommend you plan for taxes? And I said this probably blurred in with some of the other things I said, but I wanted to make sure that we put an eyeball on this. Looks like my box is all messed up. But here's what my take on financial planning really includes. So it includes what we went over tonight, but most importantly, it must include strategy on how you're going to file taxes. And so we're going to get into, on the next session, how your legal entity structure. Remember, I talked about everybody, are you an LLC at bare minimum? Do you file taxes as an S corp? Are you a corporation? What the heck does that mean when it comes to taxes? Next time, we're going to talk about tax planning. and using those numbers to know which tax form you're going to be putting it in and why is that relevant. And so it's planning when you do it before tax time. And that is the place that we all want to be in, is proactive. I think I saw that in the chats from earlier, was the word doing, like, I don't do it proactively. So we are training ourselves and getting the discipline to do this thing that we've just demonstrated proactively, because all of those numbers fold into how you file taxes. If you do it after, you're just tax prep. It's after the fact. There are some things we can absolutely do, but I want us to also just stay in planning mode. Okay. I'm going to leave some time for questions. These are my social handles. Of course, I'm between now and the 23rd. I would love for you to have started interacting in that budget template, so that when we meet again on the 23rd, I can have some time to hear about that experience. And I'll tell you, I always drop these gems and make it make sense. I think I'm pretty good at it. But I can challenge you. If you do this exercise that we went through tonight, with some of your actuals, right? If you want to fill out the whole thing, would love it. On the 23rd, I'll tell you how you should file taxes based upon those things. I'm telling you, there's some incentive to do that.
Fantastic. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you. Thank